lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLYP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another exciting episode of our Lil Yankees podcast, episode 15, to honor the late, great Thurman Munson. Everybody, I'm Julian Coltree, and joined, as always, by my partners in crime, the one and only Josh Levin.
What up, what up?
And Eric Ray Sepulveda. Boys, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. We got spring training tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. We're finally going to be able to talk a little bit of Yankees baseball on our Yankees podcast.
What a concept.
I'm doing great as well, but I will have to say I went to the eye doctor today.
Wow.
This is what they told me. You never want to hear this in any type of doctor. There's nothing else we can do, right? They were talking.
Are they taking your eyes out?
It was very.
Have a blind member of the podcast.
So my eye glands are dead.
What does that mean?
So I have like this condition called blepharitis and something else. I guess I can't really remember right now. But they basically your eyes, guys. I'm not an eye doctor. To the listeners, I'm not an eye guy. I'm a side guy. But anyway, you have a certain amount of eye glands on your eye, and apparently mine are just they're dead because it's been left like even untreated or just the amount of styes I've had. And anyway, they checked because they thought they could do this type of treatment or procedure. And if they showed me a chart, and if it was like in the middle, they said, okay, maybe we can get these guys back. But they said my eyes were all the way at the bottom of the chart, and this is my right eye. So yeah, they're dead. So and they also said it's a big reason is seeing the New York Yankees in October and their lack of hitting. And
oh wow! So
well, E-Ray,
that's
pour one out. Pour one out for your eye glands.
What does that mean for your eyes, bro? Does that mean?
Yeah, are you gonna go blind?
Yeah. I hope not. That I feel like they would have told me that. But yeah, we'll see. I guess.
Will you see?
So clear. Yeah, he will not see. Clearly, this is a developing story. We did not know this before the podcast started. So E-Ray is dropping this. I no longer have eyeballs. Bomb.
Eye glands.
Same stuff. Eye glands, eyeballs. It's all the same difference, right?
But other than that, other than my eye glands being dead, my heart's not dead. My spirit's not dead because, like Josh was saying, we have New York Yankees pitchers and catchers tomorrow. They report, and we're getting ready for this 2021 season, and that's gonna maybe revive my eye glands.
I am excited for it. I know Josh is excited for it. Your eye glands, maybe not so much if the Yankees' lack of hitting is actually the reason why they're that way. Maybe you might need to just listen to the games on the radio from now on or something like that. But it will be very exciting. And as my two podcast co-hosts alluded to, we're recording this on Tuesday, February 16th, which means in just a matter of 24 hours, the New York Yankees will be heading down to Tampa, Florida, if they're not already there, and they will be getting ready for the start of the 2021 season. We'll get into that. But first things first, not sure if you guys know this, but today, the day we're recording this podcast, Tuesday, February 16th, marks a historic moment in New York Yankees history. Raise your hand if you know what that moment is. See, you both know. And for our listeners, they both raised their hands. For those of you who don't know, 17 years ago today, the New York Yankees traded for Alexander Emmanuel Rodriguez and started what was one of the most polarizing tenures in New York Yankees history. Some people love him. Some people hate him. Some people say they would trade 2009 to get him off their team. Anybody who says that is a clown.
We don't want to talk about that guy. Let's not talk about that guy and give him freaking. Yeah. Well, what a clown that guy is. We know who you are.
Regardless, if you are a A-Rod hater and A-Rod lover, it is probably, I think you could make a case, maybe one of, if not the biggest Yankee moment outside of the Aaron Boone home run in 2003 and the Red Sox collapse in 2004. And it happened today. And you know what? Let's start by kind of jumping into that. 17 years, man. I cannot believe it has been that long.
I still remember where I was when I found out. It's one of those things I'll always remember, and I'll never ever forget it. I was on vacation with my family in St. Thomas, and for some reason I decided to go inside and watch TV instead of sit on the beach. And the Yankees traded for A-Rod, and being a almost 12-year-old, I was extremely excited, and you know, he had some excellent seasons with the Yankees. He won 2 MVPs. His '07 season is definitely the single best individual season we've seen from a Yankee in our lifetime, and honestly, it may never be topped. It was that good. So he's had a lot. He had a lot of memorable moments, some good, some bad. It all culminated in '09 with the World Series, and anyone who says they would rather have not experienced A-Rod and give back the '09 championship, like you guys said, is a clown, because what else is there without '09? Without '09, we have nothing since 2000. So,
Yep.
You can remember all the bad, you can remember all the good, but you can never, ever forget '09. So,
And the whole reason they brought in A-Rod was to win a World Series.
Exactly.
And he did it, so.
Exactly. And they they would not have come close to winning it without him. So
It's just kind of crazy, right? That he was literally going to be probably someone that we were going to face 19 times a year. Like, he was literally on the Red Sox, and then he just got nixed. And then the Yankees swooped in. Ninja Cashman, always doing what he does, the MVP of what? I think he won the MVP in 2002, 2003. Was it back-to-back years he won MVP with the
He won '03 with the Rangers, '05 with the Yanks, and '07.
So, we literally traded for the MVP.
Yeah.
And man,
Same
I kind of
another current slugger MVP on.
I was saying, your boy, my boy too, right? I'm just kidding. No, but I did. I mean, looking back, like, of course, you have to love that deal for A-Rod. I did love Soriano. I feel like we all did, right? But I mean, to get Alex Rodriguez, you had to do it. I'm not gonna lie though, I was one of the people that hated him for a long time in the very beginning. I remember in 2005. In Game 5 of the ALDS against the Angels, Derek Jeter leads off the ninth inning with a base hit, ho-hum, typical Jeter fashion. And then A-Rod grounds into a double play. He was safe, by the way. I looked at the replay. He was safe. But, yeah, I ripped my A-Rod poster. I had an A-Rod poster in my room, and I ripped it in half.
You doing something out of anger? No, that doesn't sound right.
And I remember the next year, I think in '06, remember he got dropped down to 8th.
Yep.
The Yankee Stadium was booing him. I was definitely probably one of the people booing him as a kid at that time. But it doesn't matter, man, because in the end, 2009 happened, and he literally carried us in that playoff, and that's all you got to do. He carried us in that postseason, and he got us a ring. So now, A-Rod, I will always love you now. And then I hated him again after that, actually, when he struck out in back-to-back postseasons. Then he got suspended by Major League Baseball. So then I started to really hate him. But then you loved him again by the end when he retired. So, yeah, it's really been up and down for Alex Rodriguez. You said Yankees history, Jules, most polarized. I think he's the most polarizing one of them in baseball history, to be honest. He's had quite the career. You got to give it him. And now he's with Jennifer Lopez, so good for him.
Yeah, it's funny because first things first, when it comes to A-Rod, and I will ask you guys your favorite A-Rod moment in the moment, because regardless of how you feel about him, there has to be a favorite one. It's weird because in the same way with Stanton, he came in with such tremendous expectations. A lot of the times he didn't, always live up to them. And obviously his '09 was immaculate, and how good he was really is cemented in Yankee lore because he single-handedly almost led them to that World Series. But it's like, because of Jeter, it almost always felt like he was destined to fail here.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting about him, because I will say this in a way that's different than Stanton. I love Stanton because the Yankees, I feel like pre-Stanton, didn't have a player on their team that was sort of like this all-encompassing face of the Yankees. And therefore, it felt almost okay for me to love everybody on my Yankees team, but also go out there and have a favorite player in baseball who you could adopt as a guy who you're like, damn, I love watching this guy play. And for all three of us, and maybe you guys a little bit more than me, because my favorite player for the dynasty years was Bernie Williams. But, for you two especially, it's like Jeter was the guy. Not only was he the face of baseball, but he was the face of the Yankees and he was the most likable person you had on your team. And then A-Rod comes in and it's like, not only do you not have to like this dude because you didn't like him before, but now it's like, this is the dude who was also an American League top level shortstop and somebody who was a face of baseball. And now these high expectations are in there and it's the clashing with Jeter and everything related to that. And it's funny because, you know, in that first year that they got him back in 2004, he actually was pretty good in the playoffs. He hit 421 in the series against Minnesota, and then he was hitting 260 and had a 900 OPS against Boston. So it wasn't as if he just kind of stunk. It's just
the whole team stunk.
It feels as though his early expectations were kind of always overshadowed by the fact that this guy was never going to be Jeter and had tremendous expectations on him to begin with. And Josh pointed it out, 05 and 07, yeah, his postseasons left a lot to be desired. And, you know, in a lot of those after 04, he hit 100 or worse. But, you know, he had those MVP years and he carried the team during the summer and was just really, really good. And, you know, even somebody like me who's a big sympathizer for Stanton really never felt that same way with A-Rod because, you know what, it almost felt like he didn't need to. And whether that was his polarization, whether that was the fact that he kind of came off as smug, where he would do goofy ass things in the field.
I think that's a big reason too. Like he just came in as like a cocky, arrogant, kind of like douchebag. Like we knew, like, you know what I mean? You heard the rumors of him being like, not that.
And let's not forget, first and foremost, it's like, more than anything, I think the rumors were that it was the Mets or the Red Sox. It was like, it was never really the Yankees. And then all of a sudden he was a Yankee. And it was like, damn, this guy who is a face of baseball and a perennial all-star and an MVP is now going to be a part of New York, and what's going to happen with that. And so it was really interesting and different. And, you know, add in the fact that unlike the Yankees, you know, in 2017 when they got Stanton and they were that piece away from winning World Series, they had just been there and they had won. So everybody kind of was like, all right, this is the over the top piece as opposed to the next level piece, maybe.
Yeah, I think they're looked at similarly because, you know, coming off MVP seasons, highest paid, not Stanton isn't anymore, but at the time maybe was the highest paid player in the league. Sort of a big star in baseball, and A-Rod was obviously, you know, a massive, massive star. You could even look at it in the sense that, you know, Judge was the Jeter of this team, and, you know, Stanton coming in plays the same position as Judge, moves positions, even though he just came off an MVP season, had accomplished more as an individual player. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's so much that happened with A-Rod over the years that it was an insane tenure that he had with the Yankees. I mean, he's a legend of the game, regardless of what you think about the steroids and stuff like that. He's a legend of the game, one of the best players we'll ever see for as long as we're alive. And he spent most of that time with the Yankees, and it was a very successful run. But the thing is, in New York, specifically with this fan base, coming off of a dynasty, the expectations, everything is focused around winning championships. And as the guy who was the highest paid player in the league, obviously the highest paid player on the team, he sort of came in with a big attitude, and he didn't really adjust so well to the Yankees until way later in his tenure. The fan base was against him for a long time because he didn't help with winning in October. You could argue that he hurt with winning in October in those 05, 06, 07 postseasons. And at the time, that's what we cared about because we knew that team was good enough to make the playoffs every year. So it wasn't about April through September. It was about October. And when push came to shove, he didn't deliver in those moments for the most part until 2009. And that postseason, as I said before, they can't win that championship without him because he had big moments in each series. He was a key factor in them winning. And honestly, if you take him off that team, they don't win that championship. They may have been as good of a regular season team as they were with somebody else playing third base, just because of how talented that roster was. But he did things in 09 in that postseason that affected winning that he didn't
might not
do.
even get out of the first round against the Twins.
Exactly. And those things that he didn't do the years before, he did do in 2009, and it sort of wiped the slate clean. Obviously, after that, they never won a championship again. And he, had some moments in the postseason that were more like what they were when he first got here. But the vitriol never came back quite the same until 2013, 2014 with the second steroid issue.
Yeah.
But in 2015, when he came back the second time, he had a really good year, and it kind of redeemed him. And then, 2016, he was just done. He was fried. I think he was fried mentally and obviously physically. He was in his late 30s. So that season and his career kind of ended sort of quietly. He was, I think, 6 home runs shy of 700. But yeah,
they literally told him. I think the Yankees told him.
They told him to retire.
We'll pay you, but you got to retire.
Yeah, because he was extremely unproductive. He was making too much money to not play.
Yeah.
So they basically forced him to retire.
And I'll give credit to A-Rod. I remember that summer. He went out admirably. And I think part of that was the fact that I'm pretty sure that season before is when he started doing the on-camera stuff for Fox during that postseason. And I think A-Rod at that point sort of knew, like, hey, how much more can I even really do here? But let me give you the numbers from that 09 season just so we can kind of chew on how incredible they were in the postseason. In the 3 games versus Minnesota, he batted .455 with a 1.5 OPS, and he hit 2 homers, 6 RBIs, had 5 hits. And then in the ALCS, where he could have probably have won MVP, I know they gave it to CC, he wound up hitting .429 with a 1.519 OPS. He had 2 homers, 9 hits, 6 RBIs, even had a stolen base, and he had 8 walks. So he was really good. And even in the World Series, he only batted .250, but the off-the-camera home run that everybody really remembers was obviously a huge home run there. And you could go down, and I'm sure we will for a lot of them, because my next question for you guys will be, top of your head, favorite A-Rod moment during the years that he was a Yankee.
I was just giving that a thought, and there's a few that come to mind. The first one that comes to mind is the game against Bartolo Colon when he hit 3 homers, and I believe that was 2005. Another one is 2007, a walk-off homer against the Indians early in the season in April.
Was that the Grand Slam game, right?
I think it was it was a 3-run.
There was 2. There was one with, it was like back.
He hit one off.
Baltimore
that was
Orioles.
a comeback win against the Orioles. And
it was either Pandemonium in the Bronx one or For One Saturday Afternoon.
That was it. That was it. Yep.
A-Rod answers the critics with a huge. Oh my.
Yep. That was the one. Baltimore. That was the Baltimore one. That was Kay Gallo's
Indians one.
MLB debut.
The one that sticks out in my mind is Pandemonium in the Bronx.
Pandemonium in the Bronx. That was like back. Yeah.
Then in 09, he came back from his injury, and it was after the first steroids thing. His first game back, he hits a homer when the team was sort of struggling out of the gates. And
Camden Yards.
In Camden Yards. And then obviously you guys will probably mention it too, but the last game of that season when he needed, 3 homers or 2 homers and 7 RBIs?
I think he
needed 2 or 3 homers and 7 RBIs. Yeah.
To get to 30 and 100 for, I don't even remember how many years in a row. It was like 10 years or something.
It was 14, I think. MLB record 14 years in a row.
Even more than I remember. And then, of course, he did it. And honestly, that's probably the one that is like my favorite, because that season was so great and it was the last game of the season. It's impossible to forget.
Mine is probably game 2 ALDS 2009 when he tied the game off Joe Nathan against the Twins. I was in college my freshman year, and I was watching with my floor mates and then my floor mates' friends, and he was a big Yankee fan, and we were talking. This guy who I just met like an hour before, literally picked me up and ran down the hallway. Didn't know who this guy was an hour ago, but we were just so happy that A-Rod literally, that was kind of like his first big moment, not 2009, but of that postseason, and then he just went on a tear. But like that was just insane to me. And then of course Teixeira walks it off. But I think I remember that. That's when I think of A-Rod, and that's probably one that I think of. Especially, I mean, the 3 home runs. I was there at the stadium, though not to brag, but yeah. But thanks, Dad.
Of course, not to brag. Thanks to your famous dad, Ray Sepulveda.
I'll one up you because I was at Game 2 of the ALDS when he hit that home run against Julian.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, you're cool.
It was awesome. And then I remember the home run in the next series against the Angels, the one that barely cleared the short porch in the rain, and Bobby Abreu, who's afraid of the ball, not being able to go get it. And that was so awesome. And here's the thing. I feel like ultimately most of our favorite moments regarding A-Rod are going to be 2009. But I'll give you a throwback moment. It's not a favorite moment, but Josh and I, we obviously went to college together at Hofstra. And him and I did sports broadcasting together. And one year, it was winter, I want to say 2013, Josh and I called a basketball game out in Northwestern. And that was the day that A-Rod went on Mike Francesa to have his huge tell-all interview about why he was screwing over or being screwed over by Major League Baseball. And I'll never forget Josh being like, oh my God, holy crap. A-Rod just went on Mike Francesa, and then him and I sat there for about 2 hours and listened to the entire A-Rod interview and all the calls that poured in after the fact because he was in studio with Mike, which to me is not like a favorite A-Rod memory, but it's definitely a cozy memory that involves 2 members of this podcast. Worth mentioning.
I was thinking about that the other day, actually, coincidentally, like the Francesa thing. And it's just so crazy because, for one, he's in the middle of like a hearing or something he's suing Major League Baseball, which is insane. And as soon as the hearing's over, he drives to WFAN to talk to Mike Francesa to just go on a giant shoot on what
Mike, I'm getting screwed. Like that was like that.
And he went straight to the studio on no notice. He just drove there, sat in the studio with Mike for an hour. And it's crazy to look back and think about that because he was lying the entire time. Everything he was saying was a lie. So it's just insane how indignant he was and how he was so angry that he was getting screwed over, and it was all, a lie against him. And, a few months later, he admits, that I was lying the whole time.
He was one of the best liars.
Of all that,
he's a phenomenal liar.
It is really worth mentioning on top of all that nowadays we look at Mike Francesa as a joke, and this is completely underrated to the Yankees. But Mike Francesa at his peak was the man so much that in order to get his lies out there, A-Rod was like, I need to drive to WFAN and go on right now with the sports pope, so that way I can get my fugazi message out there to all these sports fans. And ultimately everybody heard about it after that because he wound up going to that. But I digress because this is not a Mike Francesa podcast. This is
it could
A-Rod
be, but
podcast.
it's not.
I
have enough. Yes. We could talk. I have a lot to talk about with him. We can do that for another time.
100%. I think to put a bow on this, because we have other Yankee related things to talk about with spring training and some last signings to go over. A-Rod will go down in history, one, oddly enough and weirdly enough, as a Yankee. And I don't know if ultimately we all would have probably thought of him first and foremost as a Yankee, but that I think in the career echelons, and if he ever goes to the Hall of Fame,
and he's very prideful.
I don't know if he will.
He's very prideful, like proud to be a Yankee. Like,
he will go down in the same way that Reggie Jackson goes down as a Yankee and a guy who was a part of the Yankees and won a World Series with the Yankees. And last but not least, man, did this dude have the best renaissance of a career in the history of pop culture careers. Literally going from a steroid using, lying pariah who was suing baseball and was suspended for 2 years to being at everything. He's at everything now.
He's at everything.
Inaugurations, award shows, baseball stuff, the ESPYs, whatever it is that you want to say, A-Rod is there. And so is J-Lo, because he is nothing without J-Lo, who has helped revive his image tremendously. But it is insane that given what he was at and what we just talked about, that he's gotten to that point.
Yeah, it really is remarkable.
Does A-Rod really love her, or is it just a PR?
I don't know.
I'm
Whatever
kidding, I'm
it is,
kidding.
whether it's true love or something else, the two of them are made for each other, and I think they help equally make the
They
other
do.
stars big. Because J-Lo, she got an opportunity to be a part of the bidding group for the Mets. Don't think that would have happened if A-Rod wasn't there. And A-Rod gets to revive his image because of just how much of America's darling J-Lo really is. So you know what? Works for both of them. And when they get married, best of luck and good nuptials and all that crap. But we got other things to talk about, folks, because the Yankees, they got a little bit of work done before they go out there and get ready for spring training in less than 24 hours. And this past week, boys, we talked about the Yankees potentially shoring up their bench. We talked about them maybe going out there and get some last pieces for the bullpen, maybe even do something with catching. And check, check, check. They went and checked off all three of those boxes. So we do have some things to talk about. Let's start with the non-roster, so to speak, invitees to spring training. And the biggest name that came out this past couple of days is that Jay Bruce, a guy who probably back in like 2017 or something like that, could have been a Yankee if the Mets decided to trade him to the Yankees. But of course, the Wilpons did not. He is finally going to get his chance to don the pinstripe should he make the roster. And it makes sense that he would. He's a lefty and can dominate on the short porch, and he'll get an opportunity to prove his worth. And at a minimum, probably beat out Mike Ford for a spot.
Yep. I was going to say, if you are like any of the three of us and not a Mike Ford fan, you should be happy about Jay Bruce, because that is the guy who will probably take Mike Ford's job when spring training is all said and done. If Jay Bruce has a productive and good spring, I would imagine he'll make the team, because he is essentially at this point a better version of what Mike Ford is. Bruce is not a good defensive outfielder, so I don't think the Yankees will use him much in that role unless it was an extreme emergency. This is a guy who is your bench bat lefty who can DH for you, play a little first base, because he does have experience there. He's much more accomplished than Mike Ford ever was or ever will be. This is a guy who is a former All-Star. The upside is much higher with Bruce than it is with Ford. So I would think, despite the fact that it's a minor league deal, Ford will make the team come opening day.
Yeah, I mean, you got to love the signing, right? We wanted that veteran. We wanted a lefty. We wanted someone with the short porch that can we want to solidify our bench. And now you're thinking, what was it? Jay Bruce signed for, if he does make the majors though, that's the thing though, as well, you have to think about, because if he does make the majors, he's going to make $1.35 million. So you have to take that into, I think the Yankees always do this where in spring training, right? They bring in these guys to see how they do, and also hopefully for insurance if people get hurt. Because with the Yankees and their injury-prone outfielders,
They can never have enough outfielders.
Exactly. So yeah, if Jay Bruce, I'd rather have him on the bench. Again, we'll see if they're willing to pay him. I hope so, because I think he's necessary to be on the bench. I think right now you're looking at the bench with Jay Bruce, Tyler Wade, Mike Tauchman, or Greg Allen, right? And then we'll probably talk about in a little bit what does this mean for Brett Gardner, because he's still out there, and that's another big situation, right? This guy, Brett Gardner, who's been there since so long, but since he's one of the longest tenured Yankees, and tomorrow's pitchers and catchers. But yeah, I mean, how can you not hate? How can you not like the signing, Jay Bruce?
Yeah, it's a good deal, and as Josh said, career major leaguer versus a career minor leaguer, and that's really what it boils down to at this point. If Mike Ford makes the roster, then maybe something went wrong, or something happened that this guy was here. But I would trust Jay Bruce with any amount of reps to come in and give me a productive at bat over what we saw when they brought Mike Ford in the playoffs last year. And that's just pretty much simple baseball 101. Would you rather have a guy who could at Yankee Stadium dominate with with the short porch, and has done it in his career and has been in the majors for years and has been an all-star, or a guy who had one good, maybe 40 game stretch the second half of the season 2 years ago, and outside of that was a career minor leaguer? And really the answer is simple. You want Jay Bruce over Mike Ford when push comes to shove. So we'll see what it is. You know what? That's going to be what the next couple of podcasts are going to be about as we go forward here in spring training and it kicks off. What's going on with the guys? Who's proving their worth down there in spring training? Who's been showing what they can do? And eventually, who is going to put themselves on the roster based off of how they play. So that's just one guy that you're going to look for. Another guy that you're going to look at is somebody who could shore up the catching spot. We don't know what they're going to do because obviously we know Gary Sanchez is there and so is Higashioka. But Robinson Chirinos, he's the newest member of the Yankees, and he's going to be somebody who will get the opportunity to crack at least some reps, whether it's going on the train back and forth from Scranton or maybe even stealing the backup catcher job from Higashioka based off of how he plays. He's going to be somebody to look at. Yankee fans might not like him because he did say some derogatory things about the Yankees as a member of the Astros a few years ago, but he'll have his opportunity to crack the lineup because the Yankees brought him in as well.
Yeah, I look at him as more of an insurance piece. I think he'll be sort of like what Eric Kratz was last year. If they choose to have 3 catchers on the roster, he'll be the third one. He'll spend a lot of time probably with the taxi squad this year, maybe some time in Scranton. I think he's your, if something happens to Higgy or if something happens to Gary, he comes up. I don't expect him to take Higgy's spot as the backup catcher just because of Higgy's relationship with Cole. That's a very important factor. We don't know if that's going to carry over to this season in terms of Higashioka being Cole's personal catcher, but based on how
did have a
Chirinos did play with Garrett Cole, which is obviously worth mentioning.
People forget that when they were in Houston together, Garrett's personal catcher was Martin Maldonado. And Chirinos isn't really that great of a defender. He's not known for his defense. He's been a more productive hitter in his time in the major leagues. So I wouldn't expect him to crack the opening day roster unless they carry 3 catchers. But I mean, it's a good signing because he has major league experience. You need catching depth. That's a very important thing to have. You don't want to be stuck with, back in the day, Chris Stewart becomes your everyday catcher because you have no depth at the position. So
we don't want to talk about it.
This is why
or
you
even
make a
last year
like
when Eric Kratz had to play more than probably anybody really thought.
I kind of wish they brought him back.
He retired though. He retired.
Oh, he did. I know. But I think I'm here that the only other catcher with experience right now above AA is Rob Brantley. So this is definitely just like depth insurance. But when I mentioned Jay Bruce's contract, so Heyman tweeted out earlier today, you kind of have to put this in an account too. So Chirino's deal, if he makes it, is $1 million, $500K incentives, and multiple outs. That's kind of thinking that, if Gary or Higgy gets hurt, that he'll definitely make it, but they're not going to pay $1 million for a guy to be on the bench, right? Or a third catcher. So it's definitely for insurance. And I think those outs he can definitely, I guess, opt out if he does get to AAA. I think last year, they brought in, Chris Iannetta, right?
Yes.
In spring training, I think just for that reason. So he's the Eric Kratz, and we'll see if, I guess, post-March, if Chirinos is still here, if he decides to either, depending on the spring he has, depending on hopefully if Gary and Higgy have good springs and if they stay healthy, we'll see if Chirinos is here post-March. But I mean, again, how can you have to like the signing? It's just another depth move.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I don't think you really have to go that much more in depth on discussing it or breaking it down. Last but not least, the big story, at least for the last couple of days, has been the Yankees trying to get one last bullpen arm for them to be able to put their pen back to where it needs to be. Obviously, there's been rumors floating around. There's been confirmations. There hasn't been steady numbers, but Justin Wilson, most likely, I think at this point, 99.9% going to be a member of the New York Yankees. We're just waiting on the logistics of the actual salary hit that it looks as though his contract is going to be. I know there was one graphic on MLB Network that said it was a minor league deal. I don't really buy that was what it was. And I know you guys never did either, that it was definitely going to be a major league deal. We're just waiting on them to really put, I guess, pen to paper and tell Yankee fans and Yankee writers and Yankee broadcasters and whoever it is like us
up already.
What they're going to be doing. But for the Yankees' sake, their bullpen now gets one more arm, gets a lefty, gets a guy that, for most of you remember, he was a member of the Yankees and had pitched for the Yankees before. And we'll see what it does. The Yankees bullpen, at least as far as I'm concerned, is not much better than it was last year. They essentially replaced Adam Ottavino with Darren O'Day. But the biggest thing for them is now they will be able to actually have guys that they can bring in, so that way they don't have to destroy the arms of Chapman, Britton, and Chad Green.
I like the Wilson signing because he's like the 5th most important reliever on the team. So he's, he has good numbers. He's not an outstanding reliever by any means, but he's a steady presence. We've been familiar with him. He had a good year in 2015, but the Yankees decided to trade him for Luis Cessa. And you got to remember, the three of us were the Cessa section.
Yep.
Cessa section. Can't wait to bring our Cessa fan. What's it called?
Signs.
What is it? No, the fathead. There we go.
The fathead.
Oh, the fathead.
Yeah, there we go.
Just to play off your point, Josh, the actual numbers for him, he had a 3.10 ERA. He pitched 61 innings, gave up 49 hits and 21 earned runs, and he wound up walking 20 guys and had 66 strikeouts.
Yeah, so it's another guy that, maybe walks a few too many hitters for your liking, but the Yankees bullpen is somewhat full of that right now, and it always has been, at least the last few years. So it's just another to add to the list. But, he gets strikeouts. I was looking at some numbers. His exit velocity against is very low. It's like, I think it's like 89 or 90 miles per hour. So he doesn't give up hard contact, which is good. He's really good against lefties, not so great against righties, but that's okay because the Yankees have enough, pieces to make it work where, he probably won't get hung out to dry too often, but it's a good move for them because they needed another reliever. We've been coming on this podcast for, I guess, the last 3-4 weeks or whatever it was, saying they needed another reliever. They signed O'Day. We kept saying it. They needed one more. So they got it. And it's a good one. We have to wait and see about the money. I think the Yankees are waiting to put Sevy on the 60-day IL probably tomorrow before they actually officially announce the signing. And then hopefully we'll get the contract details because, and you guys talked about it a little bit before, but we'll get to it more now, I guess. This may spell the end for Brett Gardner with the Yankees because, guys, we were talking about it before we came on. They're at about $200 million with the luxury tax, the payroll before the Wilson signing. And they're not going to go right up against 210 on opening day because they need to leave room for trades and stuff. So this could be it for Gardner. If the Wilson signing is, let's just say it's $4 million, that puts the Yankees at about 204, 205. They need that wiggle room. Unless Gardner's signing for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million at the most, maybe this may be it.
So my philosophy might be, not to cut you off here, Ray.
That's okay.
My philosophy might be, the more that I see it now, that Brett Gardner and Cashman and Yankees management have this sort of deal that E-Ray's kind of also talked about a little bit here, which is like, we want you, but you're going to be our next man up guy, because we don't think you really need this big time spring training to play defense for us, to go out there and be that guy who we need in order to get the job done. And it seems healthily that, and it's not really a word, but it seems as though thankfully they're interested in getting Clint Frazier his reps in the field, that they really want to take the next step with him, but knowing the fact that Jay Bruce is not a good outfielder, and that if something were to happen, they might need Brett Gardner, especially with spring training and how everything might take place with COVID, that they might have him on the back burner and be in kind of contact with him, with the understanding that maybe nothing will go wrong and then we don't really have to worry about it.
Those are some good points. Because like you said, he could definitely wait. I just don't know. Like, I remember last week I was saying like, 95%. This is before all these moves were made, right? I think when Bruce was signed, I think we all agreed that, because I think Ken Rosenthal tweeted like, Gardner, this doesn't take us out of Gardner. I think we all agreed there. But then this Justin Wilson now signing, I don't know now. I'm kind of leaning on Gardner not coming back possibly, because I think I was reading or listening to a bunch of Yankee stuff, and they were saying that Brett Gardner's market value right now is still up there with like $7 million. He could, the 6 to 8 million, he could still find another team. Again, will he want to leave the team that he's been with his whole career. Will he take a massive pay cut? Because if I think so the rumors were what, 4 million. Buster Olney tweeted earlier today that there could be some options involved. Average value could be 2 to 3 million. Definitely could help Brett Gardner's case in coming back. We have to really think about, will Brett Gardner take that massive pay cut? Because it's really, I think when we talk about the money, it would only have to be like, what, a 2 million contract? Yeah. And I don't know if Brett Gardner, that's a pretty big cut.
Here's the thing too, that is another wrinkle in this. The 40-man roster is full, right? So with Wilson, they have to move Sevy, and that's what we think the move will be, unless somebody else gets designated. But then if you bring Gardner into the mix, that's another person that you have to clear off your roster, basically. And
they can cut Albert Abreu. I was reading that guy that they can.
Yeah. But at the same time, right? Mike Tauchman and Greg Allen are on the team right now.
Oh, you're right.
They're in his role, and they're both out of options. So I
remember Cashman has had a lot of talks has got a lot of calls.
So what I was going to say is that honestly, the only way I see this happening with Gardner coming back is either they trade Tauchman, which I don't know at this point. I guess if they can get something for him, sure, that's fine with me. But Greg Allen, they just traded for him not that long ago. So they're not going to give up a player for a player and then designate that guy to make room for Gardner. I think it's over. I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised.
Because I'd rather have Gardner than
me too.
Tauchman.
Me too.
The name that I will bring up that I think closely relates to my opinion regarding the idea that the Yankees have is Cameron Maybin. And Cameron Maybin did not start with the Yankees in 2019 when he was there. He started with the Indians, but they signed him to a contract in March. It was March 29th of 2019. So at the end of spring training, after everything was done, and then the Yankees traded for him, I would say about a month later. It was April 25th. And obviously Cameron Maybin at that point sort of found his way into doing it. So maybe Cameron Maybin works in that same ideology as what Brett Gardner might be this year. End of spring training, if things do not work out or certain things happen, the Yankees sign him then. And then by the end of April, he's at the point in which he's back to baseball shape, so to speak, and doing what he needs to do. Not ready to write it off yet. I think the signs are there that he's not going to be on this team come position players reporting. Obviously, so many position players are going to be down in Tampa already for the start of spring training, but and we probably won't see him for the first couple of weeks if we see him at all. But I'm not ready to put that nail in the coffin yet, because I feel like with Tanaka, when he left, the writing was on the wall there. It was like he had a backup plan. And for this, it just kind of seems like Brett and the Yankees are just kind of like, hey, if you're around this year and we want you and you still want to play, then we'll eventually find a way that we're going to get you onto this team, whether that is in the near and now or in the future.
I think that I keep going back to, though, is that, so we've been saying for the last bunch of weeks, right, that they will take care of the other stuff before they bring Gardner back, because those things were important. To be honest, though, Gardner, if he's on the team, he's the fourth outfielder. He's better than Tauchman. He's better than Greg Allen. Jay Bruce is not a fourth outfielder. What Gardner would be for this team is super important, and they haven't put a priority on it at all. They put a higher priority on Jay Bruce, on Chirinos, on Justin Wilson, on Darren O'Day. All these little moves that they've made the last few weeks have been higher priority for them than Gardner. And that, to me, kind of feels like it is the writing on the wall. And, obviously we'll have time to discuss it more, because at some point we will know, this guy's either on the team and he's back or he's not. And then we can really get into is that the right decision? But at least from where I sit right now and everything that I read and everything that I hear and just thinking about it internally, I don't think he's going to be back. And
he might be playing a chess match with the Yankees and pretty much saying, I want what I'm worth and I'm not going to go anywhere else. But,
that's the thing.
Your history shows that you'll need an outfielder, and I'm what you
I'm
got,
that
so I'll
guy.
be here when you need it.
The thing is, though,
but I'm not going to lessen myself.
We can't. Yeah, that's the thing. We can't pay him. He can. I think he could definitely get more on the.
It's chicken. To me, it's chicken right now because he's not going to leave. Here's the thing. I'm sorry.
So you're very optimistic that he's not going anywhere.
Well, I'm confident in the idea that a 35-plus-year-old outfielder who has played his entire career in New York and yet is a Gold Glove winning outfielder, but doesn't really play to the idea of kind of what baseball is nowadays, is going to all of a sudden just uproot his family to go play baseball someplace else. I think his MO, from everything we know about Brett, is he loves the team, he loves the guys in the clubhouse, and he loves being a part of the camaraderie. So for a guy like that, I think he's kind of at not a crossroads, but at a point in which he's going to say to Yankees management, like, I'm betting on myself and I'm betting you're going to need me. So I don't need to take a deal anywhere else because eventually we're going to meet where we want. And maybe that doesn't happen. And maybe the Yankees have a miraculous season this year in which Judge and Stanton and Frazier all stay healthy and perform at a high level. And I laugh while I say that.
I'll do this right now. We have to say what's stay healthy. If Judge and Stanton, we'll decide off air what, but I will pie myself 3 times in a row if they hit a certain amount. I'm serious. If those two stay healthy somehow, we'll talk about the logistics and how many games. But I'll put that out there.
We need to do it this way. We need to do it, I think, if both are in the opening day lineup, you have to pie yourself.
No. I don't. No.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
I know.
Yes.
Given their past history, that neither of them really make it to opening day.
I know that, but I think I don't want to just pie myself too many times here. You know what I mean? We have to
You don't want to ruin the gimmick, all right?
You want to keep it special. You don't want to water it down. I understand.
You are right though. Track record says they both won't be in the opening day roster. But you know what? I'm thinking that changes this year because they're doing yoga. They're being a little more flexible. So I'm being.
All I need is Stanton to be on the bike in between games, and at every other point, just be on the bike.
He really should.
That's all he needs. But anyway, we've beaten this with a dead horse. So I want to move on to actually talking about spring training. And that is, in less than 24 hours, we're finally going to get to talk some return of Yankees baseball when the podcast comes. And that means all of the good stuff that comes along with the start of the season. And trust me, boys, we will do our opening season podcast where we go into the standings and everything related to that and our predictions and all that good stuff. But Fangraphs did come out with their own prediction, and that is that the Yankees have a 91% chance of winning the American League East. I think I kind of feel that we're all going to go a certain way with this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think they're on paper. So that's where we run into issues usually. But on paper, they are the best team in the division. In my opinion, the best team in the American League by a large margin, I would say. So yeah, healthy. I mean, healthy margin. I don't know. I don't want to do numbers and math. 91%, 92%, 98%. I don't know. Who cares about that? I think they're the best team on paper in the division and in the American League. I believe that they should be playing for a world championship when the time comes. So yes, all those things. I think that they are that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. They should make the playoffs. Even I think we were talking about even if they somehow with that graphic that we keep talking about, Yes Network, with all those pictures that didn't have Tyone and Kluber and everyone else, that the Yankees still would have found a way to win in the regular season to make the playoffs. So, yeah, I would think the Yankees have made enough moves this offseason compared to the rest of the American League, other than the White Sox, I would think. Moves. I think the Yankees are definitely the clear-cut contenders to win the AL East, and they're up there for the American. They should, again, on paper, make the World Series. I guess we'll see. I'm getting angry again because it's just frustrating. Every year they should make the damn World Series. Will this finally be the year they make the World Series? I guess we'll see.
This is the most important aspect of the question. I think it really boils down to Yankees essentially brought everybody back. So therefore, they are a team that has plethora of playoff experience, who has been to a championship series, has played in wild card games, has been to the division series a number of years in a row now. Everybody else in the American League at this point has broken everybody up. The Rays traded away Blake Snell and have gotten rid of players on their team. The Red Sox at this point do not operate like a major league franchise anymore, seemingly.
At least not a big market one.
At least not a big market. At least not a big market one. Of course, the Astros, they have pretty much, they're looking like a fallen empire at this point.
I still think so. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jules, but I have to.
Okay. I was clearly spiked from when I cut you off earlier, but yeah.
There's some payback there, baby, because that's who I am. No. But do you guys agree that I know the Rays have lost like key parts of their team, but isn't 18% a little like very low for that team? Like
yes.
They always find a way.
I would, especially because this is based on analytics. When I looked at that graphic, I was like, oh, the Rays will probably be in second.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
here's the thing. I think the Rays
is shockingly low.
I think the Rays will be there all year like they always are. And heck, they might even be a 90-win team. And the Yankees hopefully will be more than a 90-win team. And you know what? I would have more faith in Tampa Bay finishing second and nipping at the Yankees' heels and giving them issues all season long than I would Toronto putting it all together. And I think Toronto's really good, and they made a lot of great moves to try and get better. But
their lineup,
they haven't done it before. They're a young team who is making moves to get better. Tampa, whether we like it or not, are always there. So I think 18% is super.
They're the smartest ones in the room, right? And they clearly have outsmarted us the last couple of years. So
and they still have a staple talent. Of guys who throw 98. So
and prospects, they have top prospects that are coming up. So 18% is way too low for I would think for.
They're at the point now where they are consistently a 85 plus win team, regardless of what the roster is.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's 95 plus win team and they win the division or are a playoff team. And sometimes it's just their mediocre team that does pretty well and gives everybody fits during the year. But they're never as bad as they were when they were like super bad anymore.
No. And I'll never pick them to be that bad because they just, like E-Ray said, they're the smartest ones in the room, right?
They always find
a way.
Can we talk about the Orioles? And how they're 0%.
Zero.
Like, should they even like show up tomorrow? Like,
I don't think so.
Now, you're right. You have the actual graphic, right? So it's worth mentioning everybody's percentage, and then we can kind of loosely get into it.
So AL East 91% for the Yanks, 53% for the Blue Jays, 47% for the Sox, 18% for the Rays, 0% for the Orioles. Do you want me to do the whole like?
No, that's it. We don't need to go that much in depth, though. You can give the division winners for everybody else if you want.
65% for the Twins they have, and then the White Sox at 60%. Then you have the Astros at 71%, and the Angels at 37%. I feel like the Angels are always – I feel like Oakland's going to be better than the Angels.
And the Angels have not had pitching in like –
yeah, I just feel like the Angels' percentages are always high. I understand they have on paper
because of Mike Trout. They have a guy who wins MVP, even though
Mike Trout's numbers on paper raises the percentage a lot. So.
Yeah. But I agree. The Orioles obviously being at 0%, very insulting. It's not even 0.1. It was just straight up 0.0. So the last point I want to make regarding spring training, and I kind of want to break it down with you guys because I feel like it will be a nice little ode to the Yankees and everything like that as we get ready to wrap things up here on our episode, is this time last year, we were excited for spring training again, and we obviously didn't really know what was going to expect us in about 3 weeks after that when spring training got shut down and we didn't see baseball for another 3.5 months until the restart in the summer and then the beginning of the season, right, with the 60-plus game stretch and sprint towards the end. So reflecting a year later, it's going to be really awesome to finally see baseball back in the form that we know and love. And yes, we saw it last year with the 60 games, but we're going to get the actual fanfare this year again. And it's also worth noting that even more importantly, it seems like New York is going to be opening up some arenas and places for fans now. So who knows, maybe come opening day, where at the minimum this summer, we'll get an opportunity to get to go see some games and be able to do that. So it is exciting, almost a year around when COVID struck and baseball shut down and all that good stuff, that we can get excited for what will most likely, with or without fans, be a regular season that's similar to what baseball should be.
We hope so, at least. I mean, but it's shaping up that way, so that's good. I don't see a reason why it would change at this point, but hey, with baseball, you never know these days. But yeah, I mean, it's great. It's always a good time of year when baseball's in the air, when you get that feeling. And I think, I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but I need that now because it's been a tough time, right? Even though we had a season, even though we've had our other sports, there's just so much going on that it's been a tough time, and you need that escape, right? That's my escape, and I think the same goes for you guys as well. So I really am looking forward to this. I haven't felt it just because I've been, we've all been just cooped up inside. There's no excitement of like, oh, I got my tickets for these games in April, or I'm going on a trip to Tampa to see spring training. But when tomorrow comes and I start on Twitter, I see Garrett Cole walking in to Steinbrenner Field, and I see Tyone and Kluber and all these guys and Gary coming back tomorrow. I'm going to get excited. And then on Thursday, they're going to be on the field working out. So it's all getting going again. And Jules, I was going to say before you brought it up, we almost buried the lead because I think it's 10,000 fans are going to be allowed in to Yankee Stadium. At least we're on track for that when the season starts. Mm-hmm. So not only are we going to get, we hope, the full 162 game season, a full spring training, be able to watch our team pretty much every day, starting in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, we'll be able to watch them play every day. We'll also be able to go to the games again, which if you think about it, it's
insane. Yeah.
We haven't been to the stadium since 2019.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this the other day. The last time I was at Yankee Stadium, you and I were there together, Josh, was game, I guess, 4 of the ALCS.
It was the game before the Hicks homer where they got smoked.
Yep.
And that was a long time ago.
Loaded a ton of times and they couldn't win.
They
were playing the Astros. They've played in and lost to a completely different team in the playoffs in that span of time.
My last game, I think, was the day after when the Yankees won that game. Actually, James Paxton's that's the last game right now at Yankee Stadium. That fans were in attendance for.
Pour one out to him because, by the way, he did sign with the Seattle Mariners, so he will get.
Seattle won the trade, I guess, right?
Yep,
Seattle did win the trade,
Seattle won the trade, but yeah, man, I was watching the Nets last night and on the Yes Network, and you heard New York Yankees music.
Go Knicks, baby!
And they showed that the first spring training game on Yes will be the 28th. So yeah, man, you guys know life has more meaning in it when Yankees baseball is around, for good or for bad. Hopefully more good, but it just, you wake up every day and there's Yankees baseball, and just it's almost here, and it's just every year I feel like it happens so quick. But I feel like you said, Josh, we've been cooped up and we've just been waiting for this day, and tomorrow it's happening. Can't wait to watch Twitter, to watch the videos of all these guys there, and just hopefully again looking for number 28 as we've been for 11, what is it now? I'm losing count. 11 years, 12 years, 2009. I can't do math, but we'll see.
It's worth noting that there is a coziness associated with baseball, maybe now more than ever, because when we look at what the winter has kind of represented for a lot of us, it's been, sadness. It's been being cooped up, as you guys have said. It's been not being able to go out. And it's like, more than anything, baseball represents spring and rebirth, and then the summer and the dog days and being out there in the heat and enjoying your team, and the days being long and the sunlight and all that sort of stuff. And I think for a lot of us, the idea of baseball coming back also maybe kind of is hooked up with that idea of your lives coming back. Even if it's just momentary, getting to go outside and eat at restaurants while COVID is still there because warm weather is here again. And getting to go to the stadium while it's sunny out during the summer, even if it's only 10,000 fans, because you're outside and they're going to take those precautions and do what needs to be done in order to make things right. So, I know for me especially, it felt, even sadder when you had that cutoff of spring training last year, because that was almost like they cut off spring. It's like, wow, this was something that was so important and so meaningful to us, and we were ready for this. And then the world turned to shit. And for the next 3.5 months, it just kind of felt like nothing really progressed. And then when baseball finally did come, it was good to have it, but we couldn't go and do the things that were really associated with it. So I think it's not only going to be fun to see baseball back, but, we kind of hope that our country's on the right track here, and that with the vaccine and everything going forward, that people will start to get to do stuff. And going hand in hand with that and Yankees baseball, I think is really only going to start to make people feel a lot better. And for anybody who's sad or in their feelings regarding things, it will be something that'll be good. It'll be good to open up the MLB app on your phone and be able to see those games. It'll be great to watch the S Network every day of the week, or almost every day of the week. It'll be cool to see the West Coast trips that we didn't get to have last year, where you stay up for a game
they didn't play.
at 10 o'clock and, stay up late and, bother your significant other while you're watching the game and they want to go to bed or something like that, So I'm for one really excited for it, and add that onto all the stuff that Josh talked about and E-Ray talked about as far as the return of spring training and why we're so hyped about it.
Absolutely. And what I always think about is that on March 13th, which I think was the day they announced that spring training was canceled, I was supposed to go there I was supposed to arrive in Tampa that day for just a quick weekend to see the game on Friday, and the following day on Saturday was another game. And I canceled my trip a few days before just because of COVID. And then, spring training is canceled and there's no more baseball. And we were almost a year later, and it's coming. It's coming. And we're going to get the full 162, God willing. So I think we're all excited about that. It's tunnel vision. It's tunnel vision to that opening day from now to then.
Yep.
I haven't
the only
had
thing we could say is
a Jeter Jamboree in so long.
Yes, the deli.
The deli people miss me. I can't wait to go back. High five, everybody. Wait, we can't do that.
Nope.
Social distance and masks, bro. And that was a perfect segue to my point, which is I'm a Devils fan, as you can tell by the jersey, and the NHL has done a horrific job managing their COVID regulations and their protocols and stuff like that. So what I really hope is that baseball, having done it for 60 games last year and understanding how to go through it and make sure that teams play the way that they're supposed to, and understanding that sometimes keeping the team healthy is bigger than the game, that they make sure that they follow that protocol. Because if everybody stays healthy and everybody stays safe, then no matter how long the season is, and we know that 162 can be a grind, I think it will be a fun summer, an awesome fall, and hopefully end with big number 28, like E-Ray talked about before, which leads me to ask E-Ray, before we wrap up, folks, anything to tell us?
I'm just going to continue the Jason Dominguez hype. Another article came out today saying that, so the author of ESPN's top 100 MLB prospect list said that Dominguez, who turned 18, we celebrated his birthday, I think, on the pod a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, is more advanced than Mike Trout was at his age. So here we go. The hype thing continues to go up for Jason Dominguez. Yes, poor kid. The Martian, they call him. He has maybe the most hype I've seen since probably LeBron James.
Maybe I should sell this before.
There it is. Maybe you should. Maybe we should sell him for someone else. But yeah, that's all I got.
Outside of maybe Zion, I can't think of a prospect who has had this much hype, especially
Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper was
He hasn't even played a game yet. Imagine what happens when he plays a game.
Yep, it's true.
Goes 1 for 4. Oh my God, this guy's a bust. He went 1 for 4.
Ultimately, short of this guy living up to the hype, the naysayers will say that he was not as good as what he was, told to be, because he's being compared to a multiple MVP winner and a future Hall of Famer already without having played a single game of organized major league or minor league baseball. So interesting to see, but thank you as always for your insight, E-Ray, and it's always a welcome addition to the podcast, and hopefully that Jason Dominguez card that Josh has is worth something big time someday.
Maybe it'll buy me
that-
a house one day.
Maybe it'll buy us a studio one day.
Oh,
Maybe.
now we're
In
talking.
your house,
That's what we
baby.
want.
In your house.
Yep, studio in the house, socially
All right.
distanced, of course, but we'll have to see. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Our Little Yankees podcast. As always, you can find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and that includes SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and TuneIn. And you can see our beautiful faces each and every time we do a podcast by going to the YouTube page of myself and finding our Little Yankees podcast playlist, which is every single video from every single episode that we have ever made. But until next time, folks, I'm Julian Coltree. They're Eric Ray Sepulveda and Josh Levin. We'll catch you on the flip side.